Hi, this is Bill Sutton.
And Jason Sutton.
Welcome to another episode of Sutton Impact Family Style.
And to start out, we have two new family members to our Patreon family. Two members of Sutton Impact Family Style. We have Edward Billington, and we have our good friend Jakob.
Thank you guys. Appreciate your support.
So we'll start out with the Sports Marketing Minute.
And you know what? I want to talk about the Olympics. A couple aspects of the business of the Olympics. Now, the one thing that excited me this week was that 3-on-3 basketball is going to be an Olympic sport in 2020. So my sport business moment is a shout out to Ice Cube.
The Ice Cube?
Yeah, for Ice Cube for thinking ahead of this, getting ahead of it, drawing attention to 3-on-3 basketball, which will get another shot in the arm after the Olympics. So I think 3-on-3 basketball is a great idea.
Now, who is going to make up these 3-on-3 basketball teams, at least as far as the United States goes, as we'll keep it local?
I don't know. I don't think they've even determined it. I know the NBA has a 3x tour that's 3-on-3 basketball. I'm sure they're going to have some type of a governing body, or maybe it's picked up by USA Basketball and it's part of that. I don't know if it's going to be straight men, straight women, co-ed, what it's going to be. All I know is going to be 64 teams in the 2020 Olympics in Tokyo.
No, that would get me to tune in. And I'm not a big Olympics person in general. I watch Olympic hockey and I watch Olympic NBA, and that's pretty much the extent of my Olympic watching.
But we know, based upon our own experience refereeing and playing 3-on-3, that they're going to have referees for 3-on-3.
Yes.
It can't be called your own foul in the Olympics.
No, definitely not.
And my other Olympic moment is, when I was in Beijing, I toured the Olympic facilities there, and I saw this amazing bird's nest, an 80,000-seat track stadium where nothing's going on. And I saw the facilities in Brazil, how decrepit they are already from not being used. And I'm thinking to myself, this is a stupid model. Countries should bid on it. One country or one city should not bid on the Olympics. It should be a conglomeration. Like, the ideal bid in the United States would involve New York, Boston, LA, Chicago, and Dallas. And have different events. I mean, people are used to traveling to go see. They don't go to see every event at the Olympics.
Right.
Track people would go to the track place. Basketball people go to the basketball place. And that's the way you do it. So you'd spread out the cost, but you'd also spread out the possible financial benefits across a wider scale. So in Europe, to me, Italy would have part of the Olympics. France would have part of the Olympics. Spain would have part of the Olympics. You just do it like that. It just seems like it's a lot more sensible because they're just too cost prohibitive for one country or one city to do. Now, I think LA can pull it off because it's got a lot of it'll have the venues from the the pro teams and everything else. So LA could pull it, but you really want all those people in LA traffic trying to get from venue to venue.
I'm sure the average LA citizen does not.
I'm sure they don't either. And I'm sure, again, Jace, there's other things in LA and in California in general that the money could be better spent on.
Very true. And I have seen both Brazil and the China photos where it's like you built this amazing facility.
Yeah.
And then it just sits.
I mean, I took a tour of it and I said, what are you doing here? And they don't do anything. But the cube where they did the swimming, that's become a public swimming thing. And that's, you pay, I think it told me it was the equivalent of $4 to swim for 2 hours.
Which is very cool.
Which is very cool that you can swim in an Olympic venue.
But like you said, the other venues are just so large that it's
so
you can't. It's cost prohibitive even to keep them open and do anything in.
An 80,000-seat track stadium. How often do you have a meet that's going to want 80,000 spectators?
Even in China.
And also saw in 2020 that one of the sports that suffered the most losses for participants and spots is track and field. And that's part of the I think they lost 165 athletes or 165 places. It's not going to be spread out over this 3-on-3 basketball and other things. So, I mean, I don't know. It just seems like the Olympics, good and bad. Just, our comment today. It's a sport business. There's the good of the Olympics and the bad of the Olympics. But I got to shout out to Ice Cube for getting ahead of this in the NBA with the 3X tour. And we'll see where this goes.
Yeah. And while we're on the subject of the NBA, we have a bizarre Game 3 or Game 4, sorry.
Bizarre Game 3 and a bizarre Game 4.
Yes, that's true. Game 3 was the game everybody thought Cleveland would just unload, bring in all they could when they got back home. But They had the lead up 11.
Yeah.
It did not score down the stretch. I think you can pin some of that on LeBron here and there. But I think the play to Kyle Korver and some of the other plays, those were smart basketball plays.
Absolutely.
He drove the lane. He drew the double team. He kicked out to a wide open shooter who really his only asset in basketball, Kyle Korver, is shooting threes.
Mm-hmm.
He can't play defense.
No.
He can't dribble. His job is to stand behind the arc and hit 3-pointers. I mean,
Yeah.
he made the right play. It just didn't work. And then game 4 was just insane. Now, granted, if you're Golden State, you figure they had to break all sorts of records just to keep up with you. Or not keep up with you, but to beat you. But I've never seen, obviously because it was a record-breaking performance, but I've never seen 50 points in a quarter.
No.
And 90 points in a half.
I mean, it was crazy. Like you and I were talking before the show, Game 4 seemed like it should have been Game 3.
To some extent, obviously not to
That's
that
what we
level.
expected.
Right.
So do you see any significance in the fact they won Game 4?
I think psychologically speaking, obviously last year you were up 3-0. You lost that Game 4 in Cleveland.
Yeah.
And then things sort of fell apart. So I don't know if psychologically that's any effect. I mean, Kevin Durant wasn't there last year. And I will say this year, like even in that blowout, I still thought the Warriors could come back and win that game. Like I wasn't watching.
Yeah, you're right. I kept watching it, even when it was 18, 19 points.
Because I kept getting it down to
yeah.
like 12, 13, and I was like...
I said if they get it to 10 or 11 by the start of the fourth quarter, they'll win the game.
Because I have that amount of faith in them as a team.
Yeah, plus you would think that, the Cavs, you're already down 3, But, I mean, maybe the script's going to rewrite itself. Maybe they're going to win. I don't know.
Right.
I don't think so.
I mean, Draymond Green has been not fantastic in this series, both emotionally and as a player.
He has brain farts.
He has brain farts.
I mean, that's the easiest way to sum it up.
Right. And if they can keep, I don't think they can stop Durant. Durant seems like he's locked in and he's doing what he can. But if they can do what they did in the last game, which is control Steph Curry, leave it up to Draymond and some of the other guys to hit shots. Because, I mean, Klay Thompson has had a surprisingly effective series as far as defense goes. But his shot has been somewhat off this entire playoffs.
Yeah.
Outside
he's worked really hard on defense. I think
he's working incredibly hard on defense. But I'd be hard-pressed to pick Golden State to lose another game. I think they're going to, the next one's back at home. I just think they just wipe the floor with them.
That would be what common sense would say.
That's what common sense would say, and that's what I said for 3 games last year after Cleveland won Game 4, and obviously I was completely wrong there.
Yeah. So let's go to the other playoff.
The other playoff. It looks like, and again, I spoke about this a little bit earlier, the refereeing in this series has been some of the worst I've ever seen on both sides. When the Penguins are at home, the Penguins are the beneficiary of the majority of the calls. Mm-hmm. And even, as much as I've even written articles to defend him, Crosby has gotten away with a lot of stuff in this playoffs. At home.
Mm-hmm. Like banging Saban's head the other night?
Like banging Subban's head against the ice, yeah. Which seemed a little excessive. He's right in front of a referee.
Right at his feet.
Right at his feet. The water bottle incident, which again, he's a right-hander. It flew out of his left hand. I don't think he was purposely trying to throw it on the ice. I think it... Granted, I'm a little bit of a Crosby apologist, but I don't feel like that was an intentional throwing the water bottle on the ice, which would just mean...
If it is, I'd be embarrassed if that was my intentional throw.
Right. And again, he is right-handed, so presumably he would have thrown it with his right hand if he was trying to really do something.
Okay.
And I mean, that was a blowout, so I don't think that really picks a lot. But when the games are in Nashville seems to get all the calls. So I don't know if the refs are that affected by home ice or what's going to happen, but based on that, I think it's going 7. And as people always say in hockey, you never win a game 7 because you just never know what's going to happen.
Yeah. So
because their goalie is clearly capable of doing the standing on his head performance and just dominating.
That was an incredible game, though.
Yes.
I mean, I was just like, I've never seen that much energy, that much speed, that much scoring in the first 10 minutes of a game ever in my life.
No. And again, if the Penguins are allowed to skate freely, they should win tonight too. But in Nashville, apparently you're allowed to ride on their backs and hold and do everything else.
Yeah.
But speaking of goalies standing on their heads and incredible one-game performances, I read an article this week talking about getting hot. Mm-hmm. Now, the analytics community which I think I've already probably disparaged once or twice in the course of this podcast. But I don't mean to disparage them entirely. Just I feel like there's a level of arrogance on their part as to what they think is actually true. Not that it's not. I think there's a place for it, but not the end-all be-all.
I think the pendulum has to come back a little bit and incorporate some other things.
Right. It clearly has a place, but maybe not. This is what it is because this is what our numbers say no matter what. But they have decided that getting hot is not a thing. That it's simply the law of averages and that, players don't get hot or get cold. And I would say, from my years of watching sports and obviously not at any sort of professional level or even super competitive level playing sports, I think getting hot is a very real thing.
I agree. And the example that you and I talked about before the show. So Scooter Gennett hits 4 home runs in a game. A game. Being the 17th person in the history of baseball to hit 17 home runs in a game. Did he get hot, or was he due to hit four home runs? Was the law of averages there? Was his statistical analysis going to balance it out that someday he was going to hit 4 home runs? I don't see any way. I would like to talk to that statistician or that analyst.
Right, and I understand what they would say is that, you take anything over the longest timeline, and if he was going to hit 100 home runs, and for his career he hit 102 home runs, they prove their statistics. But it doesn't prove how he hit 4 in one game.
No.
And again, I mean, from my own, high school basketball, whatever you want to call it, but like, you get those games where, you throw a pass from half court and all of a sudden it goes in the basket.
Yep.
You tip the ball up, it just goes in. Like, you shots that just don't feel like they should just go. The basket just seems like it's, again, like they said, it's like the ocean and you simply can't miss.
So you're like me, you're a proponent in believing in hot.
I believe in hot and I believe in cold.
I believe in hot and cold too. And I believe in analytics. But if there's an analyst out there that can explain to me the Scooter Gennett thing, please call me or email me. I would love to hear your explanation as to how that is not a statistical anomaly, that's acceptable.
Right.
That would commend it. That Scooter Gennett didn't just get hot.
And like I said, I understand the timeline thing, where over the course of a career you can probably predict how many home runs someone's going to hit. But to say that there's not a single game where just, as bizarre as it is, all the forces of the universe seem to just align into some sort of perfect game.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. I hope Scooter Gennett went out that night and bought a bunch of lottery tickets because he was hot.
Yeah, he was hot.
He was crazy hot. And I hope he asked out 3 supermodels because he was hot.
If it's your day, it's your day.
It's your day, it's your day.
And speaking of, I think what we're doing now ends up with a lot of people who had many of the days.
Mm-hmm.
Is we decided that, much like with our dad's episode, we are going to list our favorite NBA players. We're going to list 8. And the rules are basically, these are people we've seen in person.
Yes.
Or at least seen, whether that's television or in person.
Mm-hmm.
And we've watched them enough to really enjoy them. And again, these may not be, in a lot of cases, these are Hall of Fame players and future Hall of Fame players. But they don't have to be. These are simply the players.
Mine is.
I think I'm probably, especially, including international play, I'm pretty sure. But, these are the players we enjoyed the most.
Okay. I'll start off.
Okay, are we starting with our exceptions or are we going right to the 8?
Let's go right to the 8. And if we want to throw anybody else at the end, we will.
All right.
All right. My number 1 player that I've seen and watched and enjoyed unbelievably much and named a dog after him, your first dog, is Earl of Pearl Monroe.
Yes.
Earl of Pearl Monroe playing for the Baltimore Bullets, then the New York Knicks, was one of the most entertaining players I've ever seen. I used to drive from Pittsburgh, because we didn't have an NBA team, to Cleveland to see whenever the Knicks would come in so I could see Earl of Pearl play in person. Watched him every chance I got on television. One amazing passer, amazing dribbler, amazing shooter, amazing competitor. I love Earl Monroe.
And an amazing dog.
An amazing dog.
And I'll start my list off with someone that I continued that tradition, and I named a dog after.
Okay.
That would be Kobe Bean Bryant.
Okay.
I wore his shoes in high school. He was my favorite player to watch. And I recognize why people, there's some, obviously we had the Colorado situation, which obviously brought down, and technically I did name the dog right before that, so that may have changed the name of the dog. But Kobe Bryant was just a ferocious competitor.
Yes.
And he was one of those guys that it seemed like every time he stepped on the court, like if he could be playing me in the backyard, he'd want to kill me.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think he gets enough credit because, I mean, he was, of course, inevitably compared to Jordan. And because they played the same position, and Kobe made no bones about the fact that he loved Jordan and emulated Jordan.
But I think Kobe had Jordan's killer instinct. The two players I've seen in my lifetime had the most killer instinct of those two.
He just had it.
He had it.
And again, he played hard on D, played hard on offense. And I probably have 4 or 5 guys on my list who have this quality that Kobe definitely had, which some people call ball hoggedness or something along those lines. But I just like the player that's willing to take the shot no matter what.
Agreed.
Doesn't shy from the spotlight. Now, sometimes he selfishly feels like he should be the one that takes the shot, even if his teammate's open, because he feels like he's got that much confidence. But I like the players that are going to do that, that are going to go out and take that shot.
Okay, I agree.
And he was a great dog as well.
All right, my number 2 player was also a dog for us, Charles Barkley.
Charles Barkley, the lab.
And I mean Charles Barkley, the 76er, and Charles Barkley, the son, and not Fat Chuck, the Houston Rocket.
Okay, the ring-chasing Chuck.
Yes. I'm going to go with the Philadelphia 76er Chuck was absolutely my all-time favorite Chuck. And given the fact he's 6'4" and he could do amazing things. Remember that NBA video we had?
Oh,
He
yeah.
played the Warrior, and we watched the highlights of him to the Warrior. That's one of my all-time favorite video clips of anybody ever to play anything. He's amazing in that video. And everybody sees a fat guy sitting behind a desk on TNT. That's not Chuck. Chuck that could play was unbelievable.
And I think of all the teams Jordan played, I think that 93 Phoenix team was probably the team that gave him the most trouble.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I think there were some things in those series that you could, if some calls went the other way.
Yeah. That was
Kenny would
Chuck's
be-
MVP year.
And he would be made fun of far less by Kenny Smith. My second player on this list, who was also on that video, and he played for the Atlanta Hawks, and he had the worst song on that video because it was by Yanni for some strange reason.
Yeah, that was goofy, that song.
It was goofy, but it was Dominique Wilkins' Human Highlight film.
Yeah.
Just an absolutely incredible dunker, both in contest and probably the best in-game dunker of all time, at least in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Because he wouldn't just dunk over people, he would do a tomahawk over people, or he would reverse slam on people. An insane athlete, obviously up until the Achilles tear.
Yeah, great athlete.
Great athlete, great competitor. You think about the playoff game against Bird, where they both went back and forth for 40-something points apiece.
Yep.
And I think, he sometimes gets lost in those great discussions, but I think of all those players in that era, I think he had the worst team.
That's what I was going to say. When you see all these great players, there's usually always another piece.
Another piece. Because Dominique played in the era where
If
he was
not
going...
more than, and we see on the Cavaliers and the Warriors, multiple pieces.
Right.
But at least
Pieces.
Jordan, Pippen.
And again, no disrespect to Doc Rivers or Spud Webb or
Yeah.
Kevin Willis and different players along the way. But you figure when Dominique first came in the league, he had to battle Magic Johnson's Lakers, Bird Celtics.
Mm-hmm.
Right as they were winding down, here came Isaiah's Pistons and then Michael Jordan's Bulls.
Yep.
And Dominique never got anywhere near a second best player on those teams. But again, incredible scorer, natural scorer, just ferocious dunker. And it's worth watching that highlight video. I don't know what that video was called, but it had some amazing stuff on it.
Superstars.
Just like NBA superstars, yeah.
1985, 86.
I watched that thing so many times.
I know, I love that. I still watch it. I show it in my class all the time. My third player is Bill Walton, center for the Trailblazers. And then foot injury pretty much wiped out the rest of his career. But the best passing big man I've ever seen. Willed that team to a championship. The Portland Blazers' only championship. Loved him when he played at UCLA and followed him in the pros. Again, I would drive to Cleveland while I was in Pittsburgh to watch Bill Walton play. Phenomenal player. But it's a shame an injury cut that career far, far too short.
Far too short. My next player is the best player in Minnesota Timberwolves history. And then he finally got his rings in Boston. Of course, Kevin Garnett.
Yep. Ferocious competitor. Again.
Ferocious competitor. I know people said he was a little more bark than bite, but I saw a lot of bite on the court too, so I don't really know what they were exactly talking about.
Yeah. And entertaining on TV now.
Great on TV. He
Yeah.
and Rasheed Wallace are phenomenal together.
Yeah. entertaining.
They're rivaling Chuck. I mean, I know they're on the same network, but it's great to watch them play. But he just so much intensity on defense. The big knock on KG was sort of the similar, almost bizarrely the same one that's on LeBron, where they felt like he had to be more assertive. Because again, KG would pass out of double teams, wouldn't always look for his shot, would look to get his teammates involved.
Yep.
But great defender. Mm-hmm. And then when you watch him on that Celtics team, and I know he had obviously Ray Allen and he had Pierce and he had Rondo, and then the rest of that crew, but like he was definitely like the emotional leader.
Yeah.
And he was a very hard on your sleeve sort of basketball player. But I really loved watching him play.
I agree. Next player, I'm not going to say, we've talked about him so much on our show. All I'm going to say is he's the next time I have a dog, I'm going to name him after a basketball player. Dog's going to be named Russell Westbrook. Enough said. We've talked about him enough. I love Russell Westbrook. I would, even though I get free tickets almost anytime I want to go to a game, I'm happy to pay for tickets to watch Russell Westbrook. That's the highest compliment I can pay a player.
Well, this will be a short one because I also have Westbrook on my team. And again, I think, like you said, I've spoken a lot about him. I would say this. I don't know of all the players on my list if he would be the first choice I'd want to play with.
Okay.
Just because I don't know if I would be able,
Yeah.
But again, it's impossible to say that somebody wants to win more than everybody else. Because once you get to that level, if you don't want it 100%, then you're not going to be able on that level very long.
I agree.
But there's just something about the ferocity that he plays all 48 minutes with. Like, I don't feel like he takes plays off. And I know that that's sometimes something players have to do. You have to rest on defense or rest on offense, but I don't even know if he's capable of doing that. And it seems like he just goes 100%. And again, we've talked about him enough, so we'll move on from Russell.
My next guy, Larry Bird. Again, watch the same video that Jason and I keep talking about, Superstars of the NBA. I think look it up on the internet. It's a collection of songs. This one was a John Mellencamp song, Small Town. The highlights of Larry Bird in there. I mean, Larry Bird was just a phenomenal passer, competitor, shooter, player. He got the absolute most out of whatever athletic ability he had. And if that's saying he's a good white player, he's a good white player. I don't back away from it. But he's a fun player to watch.
Very fun player to watch. My next player to watch is someone that sometimes annoys me. I don't really like him on TV nearly as much. I feel like he brings that entire show down. But I loved watching Shaq play. Mm-hmm. Especially motivated Shaq. Which I feel like there technically are two Shaqs.
Yes.
Because when Shaq is motivated, he's just, in my lifetime, he's the most physically dominating force I've ever seen. Like, you could not stop, like, a physically motivated Shaq in the title years, and, like, whether it was the ones he won with Kobe or when he got in super great shape and won another one to Dwayne Wade, he just destroyed people in the paint. Like, you just could not, I mean, he gets fouled 50 times a game, and they only call 4.
He was fun when he played for Orlando because he could run.
And he could run, and he could dunk, and he was just this. And when you watch him in the early days, like, he has amazing feet and amazing hands. Like, he wasn't just a big bull. He could really play. And again, when he was fun to watch play. And we weren't doing positions, but I just threw in a center. I mean, granted, whatever.
Well, my next one's Michael Jordan. I've never seen anybody that could just, whatever he was playing with, he was going to win. And I've never seen anybody like that. I've never seen a will to win like that. I've never seen athleticism like that. He's my ultimate. But, I liked other players better. I liked them, but I admire this one.
Well, he also made my list. And I feel like if he were alive during his time, he could not be on your list.
Sure. I agree. No way.
I mean, and again, just like all of it, I mean, like we talked about with Kobe, like, he had the best killer instinct I've ever seen. Mm-hmm. He came through in big moments. The only negative is that he stole a slam dunk contest from Dominique Wilkins when they won in Chicago. She did the same dunk 3 times and somehow got 50s, and Dominique got a 49. But, that's...
You'll carry that to your grave.
I think everybody can admit if they watch that dunk contest that Dominique won. All right. Jordan just absolutely phenomenal. And again, it's the reason that anytime you have a discussion, somebody is the next Jordan. And LeBron is always constantly, people are chasing Jordan. Mm-hmm. He's just the consensus, just the guy.
My next guy's Magic Johnson, the ultimate point guard. I've never seen a better point guard than Magic Johnson, ever. And whenever he had a weak point of his game, he would work on it and make it better. I saw him play center when Kareem was out in the NBA Finals against the Celtics. The big TV special this week is on ESPN. Was it 30 for 30?
Mm-hmm.
Which is the Celtics-Lakers rivalry,
Right.
best team to hate or something. I'm definitely going to watch that. I'll look forward to seeing all that. But just love me some Magic Johnson. Plus a great human being, besides a great basketball player.
Very true. My next guy is Manu Ginobili.
Ah, interesting one.
Again, I mean, I know obviously those are Tim Duncan's teams. But Ginobili was fantastic on them, and there was something about just the way he plays. It's just so much fun.
It is. It's high energy.
It's high energy.
He makes things happen.
He makes things happen. And again, he's one of those guys, and again, I don't know if it's the athleticism thing, but like, obviously a phenomenal athlete, but like, he had ways of just slicing through the basket with, 4 guys around him and coming up with some sort of bizarre shot. Like, he just made great plays when they needed great plays. He was just a big part of that team, and I feel like he obviously provided, as great as Tim Duncan is. I mean, the knock on Tim Duncan has always been that he's boring. But again, if you're, the big fundamental, all those sorts of things. But Ginobili sort of provided that flash for those Spurs teams.
No doubt.
I mean, the lefty, the dribbling, coming up court.
He's like a catalyst too. When he came in, the tempo changed. A lot of things changed.
Right. And the other thing that I've always admired about him is I feel like he kept re-upping with the Spurs because he wanted to win.
Mm-hmm.
Because I feel like he could have taken larger contracts and taken a bigger role. He seemed fun. I mean, and again, it sounds like a knock against somebody professionally, but he played when it mattered.
Mm-hmm.
And he played as many minutes as most starters, but he often was not the starter.
And it wasn't important to him.
But it wasn't important to him. Contributing to the winner, and he contributed big time. And even this last year, which I think is probably going to be his last year, he had that game where he had just some classic Ginobili moments. A couple of like dribble down, pull up threes, and a couple of those just
the blocks
slashing to the court and just
the shot he blocked,
and some sort of bizarre layup where he dribbles through around people and just sort of cooks it up and it just goes in. Like, again, he's just a joy to watch. And like Barkley always says, like, Ginobili! Like,
yeah. All right, my last player, I'm going to get a WTF from a lot of people on this one. Because I'm not saying LeBron, and because our guidelines were player that you enjoyed to watch.
Yes.
I like LeBron. I just, I enjoy watching other people better. But one of the guys I really enjoyed watching was Senator Bill Bradley.
Senator Bill Bradley.
On the 2 world championship Knicks teams from the 70s. If there was a big fundamental before Tim Duncan, it was Bill Bradley. But loved to watch him play. The motion, the team, the sense of team, the passing, the defense, the complete game. This guy had it. I loved Bill Bradley. And when you were a baby, you sat on my lap, and I fed you, and we watched the Knicks. And that team with Bill Bradley and Earl Monroe and Walt Frazier, and it was an amazing team. I loved Dave DeBusschere. Loved watching that team play.
Well, in case people have the WTF, I do have, as my last player, LeBron James.
Okay.
And again, I think of everybody on my list, he'd be the one I'd want to play with the most.
Yeah.
Because one thing I know about LeBron is if I cut to the hole and I'm open, I'm going to get the ball. And it's going to be a position where I can do something with. I know if I call out screen, he's going to be right there. Like, he just plays basketball perfectly. And people sort of knock his lack of aggressiveness sometimes. But like we talked about earlier, like, he's always making the correct basketball play. And it's not like it's LeBron James and 11 people from the stands. These are all professional players that have professional jobs. He's getting people the ball in the best possible way. And as we talked about last week, it's just become more and more like, obviously, some of it, I'm biased because I love the fact that he's paying for all those kids from Akron to go to college.
That's amazing. Yeah, I love
and
that.
I think as a person, whether it was the Trayvon Martin stuff or this thing in LA, like, he's a great off the court player. And again, I feel like on the court, in my lifetime, I can't think of anybody more underappreciated.
Mm-hmm. We talked about that.
Right.
And I do feel he's underappreciated. I do like him and love him. He's not a guy I like to watch. I like to watch other people.
Understood. I had to get him on there, though.
But that's kind of a fun team. I like to go see those teams play.
Oh, yeah. I think there'd be some fighting though. I don't know how Kobe Westbrook and Jordan could be on the same team.
Yeah, it'd be kind of tough.
I did have to call out two more just because these are people that came close to my list. But in my lifetime, again, I've never seen anybody fall from grace quicker and harder than Dwight Howard.
Agree. His own worst enemy.
His own worst enemy. I was in grad school in Orlando, so luckily I was able to see a lot of Magic games. And early in Dwight's career, he was a joy to watch. Mm-hmm. I mean, the knock on him was he was having a little bit too much fun. He didn't seem serious enough. But he could run. He could jump out of the gym. He blocked shots.
Yeah.
He smiled. He played. Like, he was just one of those guys. He was so much fun to watch.
The Superman giveaway, the Superman bobblehead, all that stuff they did. He was amazing. Jace, he is somebody that listened to the wrong people.
He really did. Because, again, I mean, it started out he was obviously the number one pick. So he had a lot of hype behind him. But playing in Orlando, you don't get a ton of national attention initially. But, after that dunk contest, he was the player that, it seemed like everybody liked him.
Yeah.
There was nobody that disliked him. And now you can't find an NBA critic or NBA fan that can't stand him.
No.
And it's just... But again, and like I said, I mean, I was in grad school and you've got connections, so I was able to see a lot of Dwight Howard in person live in the early days. Mm-hmm. So that obviously gave me a little bit of,
Yeah, great player.
And then the other player I have to point out that at times, he's been my favorite player to watch on the court, but he does not bring it consistently, and sometimes he's absolutely insane, and that would be playoff Rajon Rondo. When Rajon Rondo wants to play... against the game he went head to head and he was hitting threes over LeBron. He's got great court vision.
Yeah.
He's an amazing defender. And when he wants to play, I mean, now less so, but even you look at these playoffs this year before he got hurt, he was the difference in that series. Mm-hmm. The Bulls were taking it to the Celtics with Rondo. And I'm sure part of that was the fact that was Rondo's old team.
I'm sure it was.
But again, when he's on, and it seems like he's on nationally televised games and playoff games, yeah. He's one of the best players on the court.
But again, somebody that needs, an image maker.
Right. And I just feel like he's one of those guys that just never got it. We are closing down, but we had a food follow-up we need to hit.
Yes, we do. So I went to Revival in Minneapolis 2 weeks ago, the Southern restaurant, and it was as good as advertised. I was very pleased. You had 4 types of fried chicken. It's Southern fried chicken, which I had a piece. Nashville fried chicken, which I had a piece. Poultrygeist, which I did not have a piece. And gluten-free, which I would never have a piece.
Sure.
But Poultrygeist, he said on a 1 to 10, where 10 is the hottest chicken you've ever had, this would be an 11. And I like hot food, but I don't want the hot to be so hot that I can't taste what I'm eating. But when he said ghost peppers and 3 other peppers, I said, nope, give me the other stuff. But it was very good. The sides were amazing. So if you're ever in Minneapolis, go to Revival. And then a bonus is I went to Al's Breakfast in Minneapolis, which is the smallest restaurant I've ever been to. It has 13 stools and 1 counter. And they sell a T-shirt that says a stool for every ass since 1950. And so I had pancakes, and I had blackberry pancakes with blueberries on top, and they were amazing. And it was a great place to go. It's done by the University of Minneapolis. So I want to give a shout out to both those places. They were really, Al's I'd found on the internet, and not a lot of people had been there that I knew, but I took a couple people and they all loved it. But Revival absolutely lived up to everything I'd been told about it. Really good. Great sides.
And you're doing some traveling in the next couple of weeks, so we should have some more food too.
I will be back at my best breakfast in the United States. I will be a week from today, the Griddle Cafe in West Hollywood. Bar none, the best breakfast in the United States. I'll take on all challengers on that. It is absolutely the best breakfast.
Wow.
Don't ever order a whole order of pancakes. There's no way a human being could eat and order pancakes at the Griddle. Order one of your favorite pancakes. I will order my favorite 'Tis the Season pancake, which is a pumpkin pie pancake. Pumpkin pie flavored with pumpkin pie filling on top with fresh whipped cream. Killer pancake.
It sounds like more dessert than breakfast, but it sounds delicious at the same time.
It's there, along with Devil's Food French toast.
All right, well, that about wraps it up for today, but please subscribe on iTunes. Tell your friends. family, neighbors, random strangers on the street, whoever you can find.
If your dog gets an allowance, have your dog sign up.
And then we'd really appreciate it. Go to patreon.com, Sutton and Back Family Style. The more we're able to put, we can keep adding to the show, making it a little bit better. And please tweet us, email us, let us know if you have questions, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for your support.